My brother requested that I assume the role of legal guardian for his infant child. I initially required his wife to undergo a paternity test before I would agree to this arrangement. However, given the imminent dissolution of their marriage, I am now reconsidering this decision. I am 28 years of age, and approximately 2 weeks ago, my brother, aged 30 months, approached me with a proposal. He sought my assistance in becoming the legal guardian of his 6-month-old son. My brother recently paid me a visit, and informed me that he and his wife had decided to request that I assume this role. Due to the necessity of relocating for his employment and the prolonged absence of his spouse, 29 years old, from the family home for her chemotherapy treatments, my brother is unable to decline this opportunity, despite the financial compensation being superior to that of his current position. The financial burden of supporting his wife's treatments, which commenced last month following her diagnosis with stage 2 liver cancer, has compelled him to seek an alternative arrangement with his in-laws. The proposed arrangement entails the couple assuming responsibility for the care of his wife while he is away for 5 days, returning on weekends. However, they are of advanced age and may lack the capacity to manage the dual responsibilities of caring for his wife and son. Consequently, he has requested that I assume the role of primary caregiver for his son. Given the absence of extended family, I am the sole remaining relative with whom he can rely. This underscores the gravity of my initial reluctance to decline his request. Both our parents passed away during our early 20s, leaving us to navigate the challenges of adulthood independently. My brother is employed in the field of marketing, while I am a high school teacher. Our financial circumstances are not affluent, and I am burdened with a demanding work schedule and fatigue, rendering me unable to assume additional responsibilities such as caring for my nephew. Additionally, I was reluctant to decline my brother's request due to the fact that we are the sole family members he has. It would be distressing for him to be displeased with me over this matter. Furthermore, I was somewhat hesitant to consent to this legal guardianship due to the numerous rumors and gossip I had heard about my sister. My sister-in-law and I reside in a modestly sized municipality, where information disseminates rapidly. Approximately 2 years prior to my brother's nuptials, I was informed by a colleague that one of her cousins had been embroiled in a significant legal predicament pertaining to paternity fraud. This individual was subsequently sued by her husband, whom she had deceived. While the veracity of these claims was uncertain, one name frequently emerged in discussions about this matter: my present sister-in-law. The precise nature of her involvement and the extent of her participation remain unclear. However, it is evident that she played a role in the events that transpired. After the birth of their son, who was approximately 2 years old at the time, the woman in question, who was my sister-in-law, encouraged her sister-in-law to marry her boyfriend. This was ostensibly to enable her sister-in-law to cease working and reside with her son. However, her sister-in-law's eagerness to do so aroused the suspicions of her mother-in-law, who believed there was more to the situation than met the eye. This eventually led to the decision to take a paternity test. It was also revealed that my sister-in-law was, in fact, my half-sister. The in-law played a significant role in the fraud by facilitating contact between her best friend and her cousin, who was employed at the hospital. Periodically, the cousin would receive funds from the best friend and her unsuspecting husband to ensure the scheme's confidentiality. Consequently, the in-law and her best friend deceived the unsuspecting individual for financial gain. While her best friend faced legal consequences, the in-law avoided any repercussions. My brother was released from incarceration almost 2 years ago. He informed me that he had met a woman who, coincidentally, was the same individual who had been mentioned in the paternity scam rumors I had previously shared with him. Despite my warnings, he was convinced that she was not involved in the scheme and placed his trust in her. The rumors and gossip he heard about her were not substantiated by evidence, and I was unsure how to respond. Therefore, I did not interfere. Subsequently, within a year, they got married and had a baby. I did not say anything then because I did not want to disturb their marriage, which appeared to be functioning well. Then, last month, she was diagnosed. She has been diagnosed with stage 2 liver cancer, which is the reason for her recent hospitalizations. I have not commented on the information I received from my friends at the time, but when my brother requested that I become the legal guardian for his son, I decided that I did not wish to become involved in any situation at this time. Consequently, I informed him that I would only agree to the legal guardianship because he was concerned about the implications of my statements and suggested that I was doubting his wife's integrity despite their long-term relationship. However, I remained firm in my position. I informed him that I would not act as the legal guardian for his son unless he first underwent a paternity test. I was reluctant to become involved in a situation that might involve unnecessarily complicated legal proceedings, given the possibility that she might still be concealing certain information. After a lengthy period of discussion, he finally agreed to the test. He acquiesced and informed me that he would complete the requisite paperwork. I did not hear from him for a period of 2 weeks. However, 3 days ago, he contacted me and stated that I was no longer required to sign any documents and that he would remain in the residence. I was perplexed because he had previously cancelled the scheduled move. I inquired as to what had transpired, but he responded by instructing me to refrain from further involvement and then terminated the call. This abrupt response was perplexing, given that my brother was typically cordial and respectful. I was uncertain about the circumstances that had led to this change in behavior. I was unable to seek clarification from other individuals. As the only individual with knowledge of the situation was likely to be his wife, I was reluctant to contact her. Consequently, I waited for a day for my brother to approach me with the relevant information. However, he did not do so, so I took the initiative and contacted my sister instead. I sought counsel from a legal professional instead, who responded promptly upon my initial contact. However, when she did speak with me, she immediately began to accuse me of negatively impacting her marriage. I am uncertain as to the rationale behind her accusations, but one thing is clear: something unfortunate has occurred, and it likely has to do with a paternity test. I had been adamant about my brother undergoing the test because I wanted to take some time to consider my options. I was also concerned about the potential implications of the guardianship. I did not want to invite trouble, particularly if the man in question was not the biological father. However, it seems that there may have been some information that his wife was not disclosing. My insistence on the paternity test may have prompted her to reveal this information. Otherwise, I could not think of a reason why my brother would make such a decision. I feel terrible because my actions have potentially caused significant damage to my brother's marriage. It is further exacerbated by the fact that his wife is also suffering from cancer. I would like to express my gratitude for all the kind messages and comments I have received. It is encouraging to know that not everyone is judging me for wanting to prioritize my own well-being. I spoke to my brother today and he informed me of the events that have transpired over the past 2 weeks. This was after I requested that he obtain the paternity test. After meeting with me, he immediately informed his wife of my request. He had assumed the conversation would be straightforward, as he did not believe his wife would object. However, she was vehemently opposed to the idea and found it difficult to comprehend. She stated that my request was an insult, implying that I still believed she was a scammer. She further asserted that she was, in fact, the one engaging in fraudulent activities. The wife was opposed to the idea of a paternity test and suggested alternative solutions. However, her emotional response to the suggestion of a paternity test was so extreme that even the husband began to suspect something was amiss. After a few days of indecision, he finally agreed to proceed with the test without informing his wife. He was uncertain about what to expect but was secretly it is hoped that the results of the paternity test would not be incriminating. However, it is assumed that the results would indicate that the brother and son were not a match. It is thought that the brother was so shocked by the results of the first test that he requested a second test to ensure that there had been no mistakes. However, the second test yielded the same result. It is assumed that the brother was shocked by the result, as it meant that his marriage was he was uncertain how to address the situation with his wife. He had not considered the possibility of her infidelity, even when I had warned him. However, the results of the paternity test proved otherwise, indicating that he had been mistaken about his wife's fidelity. A few days after receiving the results, he decided to confront her. Initially, she denied the allegations. However, the evidence was overwhelming, and she could no longer deny the truth. The son he had raised for an extended period of time was eventually informed by his mother that, at an earlier point in their marriage, she had engaged in an extramarital relationship with a friend of hers who was temporarily absent from the city. This was the cause of her pregnancy. She did not divulge this information to him at the time, as she believed that it would irreparably damage their marriage. Once she became pregnant, however, she realized that she was not willing to terminate the pregnancy and that she wanted to remain with her brother. Furthermore, the law revealed that she had initiated the first paternity scam by facilitating the connection between her best friend and her cousin, who was employed at the hospital at the time. Had her husband not obtained an independent paternity test from a different hospital, he would have remained unaware of the truth. Despite the evidence, it is difficult to believe that she would have acted in such a deceitful manner. Despite being aware of the potential consequences of her actions, she proceeded to engage in infidelity and deceit, ultimately placing my brother in a similar position. This behavior is, at the very least, both astonishing and reprehensible. I am gratified that I encouraged my brother to obtain a paternity test, as it likely prevented him from discovering the truth. At the time of their marriage, she was unemployed, and following their nuptials, she opted to become a homemaker. At this juncture, it is necessary to pause and reflect on the circumstances that led to this situation. She was a homemaker, so it was my brother who provided financial support throughout their marriage. It was not the certainty of his paternity that prompted her to remain with him and prioritize her marriage over extramarital relationships. Rather, it was the lack of alternative support structures in place once she became pregnant. My brother believes that this factor was instrumental in his decision to remain in the marriage. I concur with this assessment, particularly in light of her willingness to engage in infidelity. 1 year into their marriage, she had already engaged in infidelity, which suggests that she did not truly love him. The only reason she remained with my brother was because he was willing to overlook her past, trust her completely, and provide for her without questioning her. She was only concerned about herself, and while my brother is still struggling to come to terms with this, I have always known that my sister-in-law was not a reliable person. My brother's-in-law was not a particularly reliable individual, yet I had chosen to keep this information to myself. I was reluctant to cause any undue distress to my brother, particularly given his apparent infatuation with her. Additionally, the fact that they had become pregnant within a year of their marriage made it seem inadvisable to voice any criticism that might potentially disrupt their union, particularly at a time when they were preparing to welcome a child. Once my nephew was born, I was even more determined to refrain from speaking ill of my sister. I remained silent because I anticipated that my brother and I would never speak again if I spoke up. However, the truth was bound to emerge eventually. I regret that I was not the one to prevent this outcome. My brother has filed for divorce and has requested full custody of his son. His wife is devastated and insists that she truly loves him now, but there is no undoing her actions. I am pleased that he has chosen to leave, even if it has taken many years. I do feel somewhat remorseful, however, for the impact my actions have had on her. She has demonstrated remarkable patience, but this is a particularly challenging time for her. My brother deserves a better situation, and I am committed to supporting him in this decision. I recently learned from my brother that the friend with whom she had an affair and the father of their son had been an active figure in their lives until recently. He confided in me today, sharing this significant piece of information. This man was an old friend of my sister-in-law's, and my brother has had feelings for her for a long time. My brother's wife had chosen to marry him because she felt that this friend of hers lacked financial stability. This information was revealed to him long after they had commenced their relationship. He was never suspicious because he trusted her implicitly. She claimed that they had only been intimate once after their marriage, but this was merely because they were intoxicated and emotionally unstable. It is now unclear whether this information was accurate. My brother stated that he had been foolish to trust her. Firstly, he should have been more discerning and not spent so many years of his life defending her against accusations. Eventually, the truth emerged, and she was revealed to be a woman who was only interested in his money. He was the only individual who was naive enough to trust her, despite her reputation. After he left, I felt a sense of personal failure because if I had been more assertive and prevented him from marrying her, he might not have been in this unfortunate situation. However, the fact remains that she has remained in contact with him. The man she had an affair with listened to him recount how his wife would frequently invite this other man and his wife for dinner, during which they would converse as if they were old friends, while he was forced to raise this other man's son. This was an extremely distressing experience for him, yet it was also his reality. It is difficult to imagine what my brother must be going through at this moment in time, and I find myself continually reflecting on how things might have been different if I had attempted to persuade him to consider her actions and behavior before he married her. It is unfortunate that he is now having to endure such a difficult situation. His decision to love someone who did not deserve such affection will undoubtedly have repercussions for his relationship with his son. It is evident that the situation is taking a toll on him. He has been residing with his son and wife, who has moved in with her parents. However, she persists in visiting daily, seeking forgiveness and attempting to persuade him not to leave her. It is undoubtedly challenging for him to deny her, given their lengthy history together. Despite her actions and the lies she has told him over the years, he still harbors feelings for her. Marriage and pregnancy also played a role in the situation. I could discern this from the way he reminisced today about the good times he had had with his wife. I would like to be able to help my brother, but I am unable to do so. The most I can do for him is to offer to babysit my nephew, as he is taking on additional work and responsibilities at his place of employment with the goal of earning a higher income than he currently does so that he can provide his son with a better quality of life. It seems unlikely that he will be granted full custody of his son, given the circumstances. It is probable that the court will allow the child to spend as much time with him as possible. If something unfortunate happens to her, it is unlikely that she will be able to fight the cancer for much longer. As far as I am aware, her condition has been steadily worsening for the past few months. To be frank, at this point, I am unsure how to feel. With regard to all parties involved in this situation, including myself, I endeavored to provide my brother with sufficient warning when he was dating my sister. However, he chose not to heed my advice, and thus I cannot claim any responsibility for the outcome. Nevertheless, I am unable to shake off the sense of guilt that I feel. All I can say with certainty is that every single adult, all parties involved have failed my nephew and made a complete mess of things, including me. I hope that we can all emerge from this situation as better people. Update 3. It has been a week and a half since my brother's last visit. He has been preoccupied with work and requested that I watch my nephew for a couple of hours. He had to visit his lawyer urgently, and I agreed because I felt that this was the least I could do for him. Once he returned, he informed me that his wife had told her friend who was the real father. He is willing to fight for custody as well, should my brother not agree to his wife's terms. He informed me that she is still willing to reconcile with him and even attempted to leverage the cancer diagnosis to gain leverage, stating that she would not be around for much longer. It would be more beneficial for all parties involved if she were to simply allow the remaining months of her life to be spent in peace, rather than engaging in selfish actions that disrupt the process and introduce unnecessary legal complications. It is evident that she is unaware that the custody battle is not a means of seeking retribution, but rather a mechanism to ensure the well-being of her child, even in the event of her demise. The notion that a biological father can simply take custody of his child without due process is a fallacy. It is only an individual with a self-serving mindset who would believe that this is solely about them. The only actions that my brother has taken to retaliate against her are the divorce proceedings, which he initiated because he respects himself and his own autonomy. Given the aforementioned circumstances, it is understandable that he would prefer to avoid further interaction with her. In fact, just a few days ago, they engaged in a particularly acrimonious exchange when she visited her son with the intention of persuading him to cease the legal proceedings. However, when he informed her that he was not inclined to do so, she became enraged and made a series of disparaging remarks. She attempted to change his mind, but he became enraged and responded with a series of incendiary remarks, further exacerbating the situation. He believes that she enlisted the help of her friend as a means of retaliation, a hypothesis that I find to be plausible. I am uncertain as to how her friend's wife will respond to these developments, given that they have only been married for 4 months, according to my brother's account. The situation is becoming increasingly untenable. I am grateful that my nephew is unaware of the turmoil surrounding him. Even today, he seemed as happy as ever. It is my hope that he will remain so forever, as he has already endured a great deal in his young life. Update: I would like to take a moment to address my sister. In conclusion, the law visited me today to see my brother. He had been here to drop the baby off for a while and had been avoiding her for a few days, so she turned up at my house because she knew he was likely to come here. I attempted to persuade her to leave, but she appeared to be in a state of considerable physical weakness, making it challenging to decline her presence. My brother therefore assumed responsibility for the situation and invited the woman into the house, requesting that she be brief as he was due to leave for work imminently. I was present in the room with him throughout the conversation, which made me feel as though I was intruding on something of a highly personal nature. The law was imploring my brother to grant her joint custody. She had managed to evade her friend, who was not even a party to the proceedings, but her emotions overcame her, and she ultimately divulged the truth, which prompted his involvement. She stated that she had reconciled herself to the divorce and was not contesting it. However, she was compelled to see her child due to the worsening effects of her cancer, which had already reached stage 3, according to the latest medical reports. She required extended time with her child. I considered it likely that my brother would decline, given the distress he was displaying. However, he informed her that the maximum assistance he could provide was supervised visits. He stated that she had been untruthful to him for an extended period and that he was unable to simply accept this. He was unable to simply move on and accept her explanation without further investigation. He was also suffering, and his pain and scars were not visible, yet he was still affected. He informed her that he had fought against those who accused her of being a gold digger and a scammer. However, the truth was that she had cheated on him, despite his efforts to defend her. For his own sake and the sake of his son, he wanted to let her go and start a new life with my sister-in-law. The legal counsel did not appear to be entirely satisfied with the proposed arrangement, but my brother was unwavering in his stance. He asserted that she had two options, either consent to supervised visits once a week or proceed with litigation against him. After a period of silence, she stated that she would opt for supervised visits, which was ultimately the decision the court would have mandated. Consequently, the only remaining step is to formally agree to this arrangement. However, despite this progress, the divorce is still imminent. I am uncertain about the future of my brother and my nephew, but I hope that it will be filled with positive outcomes. Story 2. I observed my wife returning home. I had dressed for the occasion and proceeded to review the security footage, which revealed the circumstances that led to the dissolution of my marriage. I was 27 years of age at the time. I was married to my former spouse. My second wife and I had been married for approximately 2 years before I discovered that she was not as faithful as she claimed. We met at the beach on a summer afternoon, and we enjoyed each other's company immensely. She had come with a group of male and female college friends, all of whom were law students. They had decided to take a short break from their studies. I was also with a few friends, so some of us interacted. With my wife and her friends, we established a positive rapport, whereas other individuals' discussions concluded shortly after our departure from the beach. My wife and I exchanged contact information and maintained communication. We initiated a romantic relationship and subsequently married 2 years later. Prior to our nuptials, our relationship encountered challenges. My wife hailed from a well-to-be continued. Her parents were extremely disapproving. They were against our relationship from the outset, stating that it would be a grave mistake for her to marry me. Their disapproval was based on the fact that I worked 12-hour days, had 2 different jobs, and was unable to secure a well-paying position despite my best efforts. However, despite her parents' objections, we were deeply in love and committed to one another. Subsequently, we resolved to wed with or without her parents' approval. After months of her parents' attempts to separate us, they ceased and accepted our relationship with her parents, allowing us to proceed without their interference. I anticipated that we would not encounter further difficulties, but I was unprepared for the developments that followed. 2 months before our planned nuptials, my wife engaged in an extramarital affair with one of her classmates. She subsequently confessed to me, stating that she had acted without my knowledge or consent. She claimed that it had happened by mistake, yet the guilt was evident. During the period in which she asserted that it had occurred, she consistently exhibited a demeanor of sadness and depression. Upon inquiring about the source of her distress, she would respond that she was fine. However, when she ultimately confessed to cheating on me with her classmate and was unable to provide an explanation for how it occurred, I chose to forgive her. In retrospect, I regret making such a mistake and wish I had been more astute. I believed she would not engage in such behavior again because I felt that if she came clean without waiting for me to discover the truth, it would demonstrate her sincerity and remorse. This was a challenging experience for me, but because I was young, naive, and in love, I forgave her. She promised it would never happen again, and we proceeded with our wedding. The couple was married for approximately 2 years, during which time the incident with the classmate was never discussed again. The memory of the confession remained with the husband, who recalled it daily but did not mention it or discuss it. The husband attempted to let the incident remain in the past because his wife had moved on and was trying to be his ideal wife. She was extremely kind to him, pampering him and treating him well. It was as though she was attempting to convey her remorse for her actions, although I remained uncertain as to whether she was genuinely contrite or merely attempting to atone for her indiscretion. Each time I looked at her, I found myself wondering if she was still engaging in sexual intercourse with her former partner. This suspicion began to affect my emotional state, causing me to feel uneasy about the possibility of still being emotionally attached to the past. As a result, I began to experience difficulties in fully enjoying our marriage. A year after the wedding, I attempted to move on from the past and embrace a more spontaneous approach to our relationship. However, I realized that I had not developed the same level of affection for her as I had initially hoped. In an effort to rekindle the spark, I began making small gestures of affection, such as preparing breakfast in bed or cooking dinner for us before she returned from work. My ultimate goal was to plan something truly special for us on our second anniversary. The second anniversary of our nuptials approached, and I eagerly anticipated the day. When the anniversary finally arrived, I had prepared meticulously to woo my wife and make up for my past shortcomings. I had even procured a costly gift for her, a dress and accessories to match, and I had gone home from work early to await her return. However, she did not come. I returned home as anticipated and contacted her to inquire about her absence. She informed me that one of her professors had arranged an impromptu class, which she was unable to miss due to the fact that attendance was graded. I was disheartened by this news but refrained from attempting to persuade her otherwise. Given that it was our wedding anniversary, I had anticipated that she would prioritize this special occasion. However, I am uncertain as to why she made this choice. I once again experienced the sensation of her engaging in some form of activity behind me, which I was unable to dispel. In an effort to achieve a sense of resolution, I decided to ascertain her location on Snapchat. It appeared to be different from the location where she had been studying. Initially, I was uncertain about the accuracy of this information. However, after conducting a more thorough investigation, I came to the realization that my wife had been deceiving me once again. I proceeded to the location without delay and discovered that it was the same apartment where her former classmate, with whom she had engaged in sexual intercourse prior to our marriage, resided. I discovered that the apartment in question was the same one that her classmate, with whom she had engaged in sexual intercourse prior to our marriage, resided in. I informed her that I could elucidate how he felt that evening. The terms heartbroken or disappointed would not suffice to describe his emotional state. I was overcome with the urge to storm into the apartment and assault her. However, I ultimately decided against this course of action. Instead, I contacted her parents to request their presence at the apartment. My intention was to surprise her on the occasion of our anniversary. On the anniversary, I was certain that her parents would come to the apartment to surprise her. I was correct. Not long after I called, her parents arrived, and we went to the apartment to say, "Surprise." As soon as we knocked on the door, her lover came to open it. Her parents saw her walking naked inside the house. Her father yelled her name, and her mother pushed her aside and charged in. The evening's events were, to say the least, unfortunate. It was unclear whether she was begging me or her parents. I observed her mother screaming and questioning her, and her father standing there in shock after she covered herself with the sheets. I did not say much, I only informed her that our relationship was over and that her cheating on me was my fault. She did not understand, and I did not attempt to clarify further. She subsequently returned to the family home later that week and requested a conversation. When I declined, she selected the items she required and departed the premises without further discussion. Her behavior was enigmatic and did not prompt me to inquire further. Prior to her return, I had initiated divorce proceedings. She retained the services of a lawyer and signed the relevant documents without hesitation when they were ready. However, to this day, I remain uncertain as to whether she ever truly loved me, or whether her actions were merely a means of asserting her independence from her parents. During my last attempt to contact her via Facebook, she posted a photograph of herself in her application with an overly sentimental caption. I was incensed and immediately blocked her, prompted by this image. I also considered whether she truly loved me. I observed her happiness and realized that I was foolish for dwelling on the past and postponing my own life. I have since recovered and moved on more rapidly than anticipated. Additionally, I came to understand that we have the capacity to control our emotions and that experiencing distress due to a cheating spouse is not an acceptable outcome. My focus has shifted from her to my own well-being and future prospects.